Welcome to We Don't Have Cookies with your host, Jason Marshall.
Hey everybody, thanks for downloading the show. I have a good one for you today. Later on in the show, I will be talking about a frequent guest and former Big Brother house guest, Elena Davies, with her mom to tattle on Elena for not returning my text and to talk to her about a few things that have been going on in the past few months. The podcast's official weatherman, Frankie MacDonald, will also be here to make sure you're prepared for the week. But first, I announced this guest at the end of last week's episode. In case you missed it, he is one of the most controversial people to appear on the podcast. You may have seen him featured in the Netflix documentary Behind the Curve. You may have also seen him at a gas station or grocery store if you live in his area. He is the leader of the Flat Earth movement. He is Mark Sargent. Before we go any further, am I pronouncing that right? Mark? It feels weird when I say it. Mark?
Really? Why? Well, because it's sort of the same sound, Mark and Sargent, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it feels like I'm not saying it right. Can you say it?
No. It's you're absolutely
Mark?
right. Mark Sargent.
Mark.
Yeah.
Mark. Okay.
Like the Bible. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Those guys.
See, it sounds fine when you say it. Mark.
Do you not have any friends named Mark?
I got to be honest with you. This is the first time hearing that name.
You're making that up, right?
Yeah.
You're absolutely. Yeah. Okay.
I brought you on because I was watching the Netflix documentary that I mentioned a minute ago, and you said, and I quote, "I did not choose Flat Earth. Flat Earth chose me." That in and of itself sounds like a conspiracy to me. Are you being controlled by the Flat Earthanati, or did Xenu send you?
That is, by the way, the first time I have ever heard that term, Flat Earthanati. That is awesome. Because if you're into Flat Earth, you're into a lot of different conspiracies, and we have used the Illuminati term many times, just in passing. Mm-hmm. But no, I meant what I said. The Flat Earth chose me, not the group. It's not like I was called up and then brought into some ritual and then inducted into the Flat Earth Society. No, meaning I was conspiracy bored, and I just looked at, and anyone that's into conspiracies has heard of Flat Earth. I have yet to run into a person that said, "Oh yeah, Flat Earth, never heard of it. Tell me more about it." Everyone knows what it is, and everybody hates it. And then I got into it, and as I was trying to tear it down, that's what the T-shirt reads. I became a flat earther because I tried to disprove it, and it took me 9 months. I was stubborn. I hammered on that thing from the summer of 2014 up until February of 2015, and then it just took off. I mean, I made that series of videos called Flat Earth Clues, and the community really, really blossomed. And I wouldn't necessarily, but I know you called me the leader of Flat Earth. I'm the freshman recruiter. There's a high degree of probability that when you get into Flat Earth, you're going to run into my stuff first. Mm-hmm. I'm the 101 book, but there's lots of people that make better stuff than me. But mine's the easiest to understand.
One thing that you just mentioned was people hate the Flat Earth theory. I was excited about having you on this week, and I told a few friends about it, and they instantly got angry when they found out what I was going to talk to you about, which I found odd. I thought people would be intrigued or this and that, but it had this visceral reaction. What is that like to deal with in your life?
Oh, well, I can't blame people, because I've done so many interviews over the last 5 years that people say, "Why don't you get angry when someone comes after you?" And I say, I can't. It'd be hypocritical because I used to be them. I was on that side of the fence. And the reason why people get angry, you've heard of the 5 stages of acceptance, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. That denial followed by anger. Because that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about a huge paradigm change where, if you don't want to believe in Bigfoot or 9/11 or Pearl Harbor or Loch Ness Monster, fine. There are things you can just turn your back on, but it's kind of like the Matrix in a way where you can't walk away from this. I've literally had people say, "How dare you tell me the world isn't what I think it is?" And that's why they get upset, which is, I'm sure you probably got grief from your friends saying, why are you even talking to this guy?
Yeah.
Why are you even giving him a format to talk on? And I've heard this. I've had, oh God, at least a dozen big podcasts, including Alex Jones. Alex Jones would not do our thing for the first 3 years, and we finally did it last year. And it was, and that's because they were afraid of the backlash, because people are so polarized about it, and they're polarized. Let me throw one more thing, because of the conditioning, meaning you went through the American school system. There's a flag in the corner of the room, of every classroom, right? And you graduate, and there's people that will actually join the military partially based on the flag that they saw for 12 years. What do you think's right below that flag in most classrooms? A globe. Just this little toy globe. And that sticks with you after a while, to where you graduate. If you graduate from high school, you'd be like, oh yeah, that's the world we live in. That's my flag. That's my world. And it's like, yeah, but you've never seen it. No, it doesn't matter. That's my world. That's what I've seen. That's what when you repeat, you drill that into somebody's head. It's amazing, the conditioning that people get.
What are your thoughts on the documentary? For one, I thought that it was very well-rounded.
Well, I had a chance to spend 7 months with the film team shooting that thing, and I predicted I was literally the first person from the movie to see it up in Toronto before the film festival, and I predicted. I told Patricia, I said, "Well, the community's going to hate it, but the general public's going to find it interesting." And then I started sitting in studio audiences, when we started shooting this, showing this on the big screen, and I noticed. It was even weirder, because what you just said there, it was balanced. It wasn't a propaganda film. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't pure, use the drug reference. It wasn't pure uncut flat earth. It was flat earth scientist, flat earth astronaut, flat earth psychiatrist. And so people felt safe going in. Even the title makes you feel safe. It's like, oh, behind the curve, we're going to get to make fun of flat earthers. It wasn't titled The Flat Earth Truth or something like that, because that would just scare people away. And I'm not kidding you, no matter what audience I sat with, the first 20 minutes, people didn't even think it was real. Meaning they didn't even think the movie was real. They thought it was like a piece of docufiction.
Yeah, like a mockumentary
and then also,
or something.
Yeah. It's the 20, 30-minute mark, all of a sudden they're like, wait a minute, there's something really weird and big on the internet, and I don't know about it. and so by the time the end, 100 minutes later, people were just shell-shocked, most of them, because they're like, what is happening, right? To where when the director got on stage, the first question every time was, are you guys flat earthers? And they weren't. The people that everyone that produced this film had nothing to do with the flat earth community. They in fact, they hated us.
Wow, really?
Oh God, yeah. And it was weird, because it didn't, they're nice people, and it was supposed to be a human interest piece. But what happened was, when we got to the convention, the big Raleigh conference, Raleigh, North Carolina, mm-hmm. There was that 12-year-old kid that walked up to the microphone that asked me a question. And I didn't even know this. They were really tight-lipped about this. I only heard it when they did the director's commentary for the iTunes version, that they said, oh yeah, this is when we had to take a stand. It's like, and all of them, everyone in the room that was doing the director's commentary, they all just chimed in. It's like, oh yeah, this is when we had to take a stand against flat earth. It's like, what? What are you talking about? The problem, because there's like, it's all fun and games and you'll have kids involved. Yeah. And then it's like, well, then you're messing with our future. It's like, protect the children. And it's like, what? But the problem was, it was a fairly low budget film. They did amazing work for considering the money they didn't spend on it. But the movie was already shot by the time we got to the conference. So they couldn't go back and reshoot it. So they just bent it as much as they could in editing, and took cracks at people, and took cracks at Bob and Jaron and Nathan, a little bit of me, left Patricia more or less alone. But that's why, again, but it worked. It still worked. People felt safe watching it. And I hear that time and time again. Yeah, the flat earth community still hates it. But I say, people ask me, would you have changed anything? And I said, other than the shot at Jaron they took at the end with the laser, I think everything else I probably would have left in. I don't think I would have left it on a comedic note. However, that worked at the end. It gave the audience something to feel, It's like, oh, those silly flat earthers, and then they could leave the theater, even though nobody. Sorry, let me throw this one thing in there.
Uh-huh.
Nobody in the theater even knew what that experiment was, and I know this because I asked them. And I said, do you even know what happened there at the end? It's like, no, but it was bad, right? No, but it was funny, right? No, but it made you guys look silly, right? I go, but you have no idea what the experiment was. Like, no, I have no idea. So anyway, go ahead.
Well, you and Patricia Steer went to the Seattle Museum of Flight, had some fun, made some videos.
Yeah.
Then you guys flew to Houston to go to the Houston Space Center. I'm in Dayton, Ohio. I would love to meet up with you guys at the National Air Force Museum. They have a space exhibit there. I'll even pay your guys' way in. What do you say?
Sure, but we'd have to get out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd be happy to.
Yeah, that'd be
absolutely
awesome.
Happy to. Yeah, and by the way, I'm not knocking. I've got to be clear here. I'm not knocking everybody in the aerospace industry at all. Most of them don't. It's compartmentalized, especially NASA. We're talking about a military wing that's uniquely military. I'm not saying, because I've had people come at me and say, "Oh, my father's cousin, brother's former roommate worked for NASA." That's not true. Sometimes it was like my grandfather. And I'd say, yeah, fine. He turned a wrench or he built a fuel system. 99% of anyone that works for aerospace wouldn't have to know anything.
A person on that documentary that really stood out was a guy named Math Powerful. And
Powerland.
While I was watching, I got the sense that he doesn't really like you, but maybe I'm wrong.
He doesn't like anyone. Matt is the epitome of does not play well with others. I cannot. I could spend an entire show just on Matt, we've never met. That's the weird thing. We talked early on because I thought that he was producers loved to call me about him. That the part in the documentary, I was not making that up. Producers would call me and say, "Oh, hey," like the high school thing. "Do you know Matt Powerland?" Anyway, get me an introduction. It's like, yeah, sure. And Matt was just this aloof artist. I mean, he was a hell of a painter, no question. But the scene you saw in the documentary where it said Matt reached out to us and wanted all these demands, in the film, and that was a warning. It was a warning from these producers to any other producers. The thing is, I told these producers and every other producer up until the first one that ever reached out was True Television out of New York. And they said, "Can you set up a thing with Matt?" And I go, "Sure." I go, "You're going to regret it." And they talked to him and they called me back. They said, "Why didn't you warn us?" And I said, "Well, I did. I absolutely warned you." And they still, even after that, they still wanted to work with him because on camera, he's like this manic slow motion motorcycle crash, and you can't take your eyes off him. Anyway, so they said, in fact, they were even willing to do a television show, but they would have him like in his own place, just him with his own camera crew in a different place away from the group because it just would not work. It would not work. And very few people in the community have even met him in person. So I think he's in Vegas now.
I think Netflix should do a Tiger King style documentary on you two. And in that scenario, who would be Joe Exotic and who would be that bitch Carol Baskin?
Okay. Two things.
Mm-hmm.
I have deliberately not watched the Tiger King thing at all because it was getting hyped up so much during this whole virus thing that I was like, you know what, I'll get to it when I get to it. But I just stayed away from it. I was like, I don't even want to deal with it right now. For whatever reason, it just rubbed me the wrong way. Yeah. But Mac still could do something. It was weird because I kept pushing him to do interviews. And then go figure, ironically, it turns out he can't sit still. He can't give a coherent interview if his life, literally gun to his head, he wouldn't be able to do it.
Wow.
I don't know why. But anyway, an interesting guy. And I love the fact that the documentary reached out to him multiple times, tried to get him to sign off. And then they figured, it's like, you know what? He's got so many YouTube clips out there. Let's just do a collage of things, and it'll make it seem like we actually did interview him. And he threatened to sue, but of course he couldn't because fair use went into play, and so it was fun.
I do have a question about your childhood. When you were a kid, how old were you?
Yeah. It's a good line.
All right.
I could answer that, but I don't think your audience would get it because 4 out of 3 people don't understand fractions.
Well, before you go, I'd like to play a game with you if you're up for it.
Yeah.
All right. It's called Fast Five.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I'll give you 2 choices, this or that, as quickly as possible. I want you to answer with your preference of those 2 choices. At the end of the game,
Okay.
if you answer all 5 within 60 seconds, I'll give you a big prize. What do you say?
Okay, let's do it.
All right. I'll count down from 5 and we'll begin. 5, 4, degrees, 2, 1. Hand tossed or flatbread pizza?
Hand tossed.
Ball tire or flat tire?
Ball tire.
Mullet or flat top?
Flat top.
90s style box TV or flat screen?
Flat screen.
High heels or flats?
Flat.
All right. You got all 5. Your prize is my dad's personal cell phone number. I'll give it to you when we go to break. Not a lot of people have that information. Maybe 70 people in the entire world.
Hey, oh, by the way,
Mhm.
can I ask you something about that last question?
Yeah.
When you said high heels or flats, were you referring that I would wear them or someone else would be wearing them? Does it really matter?
I just assumed it was somebody
No,
else, but either way you want to go.
Well, no, because I didn't know. Well, at that point, because I didn't know where you were going with that. If it was a woman, then I would say high heel.
Uh-huh.
But if it was me, I would say flats because I just can't pull off heels.
Well, like I said, I know you're into conspiracy theories. I know you're into information. And my dad's cell phone number, not many people have that information. What are you going to do with it?
Well, I'll probably wait till 3 a.m. and call him up and ask him if his refrigerator's running.
That sounds like a plan. It was great talking to you. Is there anything you'd like to promote before you go?
Yeah. Look up anyone in the Flat Earth community. If you want to find my stuff, just type in Flat Earth Mark into YouTube and you will find all my stuff. But, my stuff is just a starting point. From there, hopefully it'll lead you down other rabbit holes and maybe your eyes will be opened, but at least your perspective will be changed.
All right. Well, thanks for being on. I'm going to take a quick break, and when I come back, I'll be calling a frequent guest mom to get them in trouble. Stay tuned.
Want to contact the show? Send an email to jason@wedon'thavecookies.com or call 929-266-9342 and leave a voicemail.
This is Anthony Scaramucci, former White House Director of Communications and also a podcaster with Mrs. Mooch on Mooch and the Missus. You are listening to We Don't Have Cookies.
Joining me now is one of the nicest ladies on the planet from the great state of Texas. It's my friend Eugenia. How you doing?
Well, I'm great, and thank you for a lovely intro. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really good. The reason I brought you on is because you're the mother of a frequent guest, or formerly frequent guest, Elena Davies.
Yes, I am.
Since you're here, I'd like to get a little backstory between you and Elena. I have to ask, how did you become her mother?
Oh, well, it's very strange. I mean, I don't think it's ever happened to anybody else.
Uh-huh.
I had sex with her father, and boom, 9 months later, she was here. So
that's a great
lucky me.
story.
It is. She laughs at me all the time and says, when she's asking me to do something and I'll say no, she goes, well, you're the one that had unprotected sex. You're now my mother and are required to do this. I've heard that for 20 years now, at least. So payback, I guess.
The reason I brought you on is that your daughter hasn't been returning my texts. And and I was hoping you could do something about that and get her to
I will.
Okay.
I will. Jason, as soon as we get off today, I will jump on the phone with her and scold her up and down to return a text message to you. She's super bad at that.
Well, here's the thing, and I do appreciate that because I would like to get a text, but it's been a little while, and I was also thinking she should probably be grounded. What do you think? Like 3 days without her phone?
I have, for sure. She will be grounded. It's my go-to punishment for her, and it's 0% effective. So
I would love to see her try to go 3 days without a phone.
oh my Lord, talk about withdrawals. It would not happen. I promise you. Well, I say that she went into the Big Brother house and was without her phone for probably about 4 months. So we know she can survive it. I guess her focus was on other things at the time, but yeah, she's done it one time and that was it. So
that's a good point.
It's possible.
Recently, people have been pretending to be you on Instagram. I keep getting friend requests from you. And the first time I thought, oh man, I didn't know that she unfollowed me. And then I look and there you are. And I thought, well, maybe she got locked out of her other account, but it's a couple of fakes. What's going on?
Yeah, I don't know. That was really weird. And when you first looked at it, it literally looked like my name. They just inserted like a underscore at the end. And then it happened a second time and they added a second I in the middle of my last name. And it takes a minute of looking to figure out that that's not a real account. And I have no idea. Why would anybody want to impersonate me? I don't really know their benefit of that, but other than maybe they thought they could get close to Elena. So, but it didn't work. I had so many people that were like reporting the accounts and eventually they got knocked down. I think Elena messaged one and the first one, I think, and said, why are you doing this? And they responded to her.
Really?
They would not respond to me when I reached out to them. So I don't know. I can't imagine what the benefit would be. It's not like I make any money off of Instagram or have a huge following or anything. But hey, kind of made me feel good for 5 minutes thinking somebody wanted to pretend like they were me. But we've got them down. They're not up anymore. So just FYI to anyone, if you get a Instagram request for friends, just double check, make sure it's really me before accepting.
Yeah, that was a great job by them because I wasn't expecting somebody to make a fake account for you. So no offense. It just was kind of surprising. And
same. I still don't know why anybody would want to do it, but like I say, maybe it was a tactic to somehow they thought they could get close to Elena that way. I don't know. She has a lot of huge fans, I will say, that are just devoted to her and they watch for everything she posts and anything she says and everything she does. So that's my only thought to it. My claim to fame is just being her mother. So, and glad to do it too.
Well, I like to do something on the show called a question from my last guest, where I get a question from my last guest to ask my next guest without my last guest knowing who my next guest will be. The question can be silly or serious. Eugenia, are you ready for a question from my last guest?
Well, of course.
Okay, so my question is, would you rather have an alien invasion or a zombie apocalypse?
I would rather have an alien invasion.
Really? Why is that?
Well, maybe we could jump on their spaceship and fly away or something. I don't know. I feel like there's probably life somewhere else in our universe and I want to see what they look like.
Okay. I like that answer.
And the invasion doesn't necessarily have to mean that they're here to kill us. They could just be coming to hang out with us. So invade away.
I think worst come to worst, that would be the best scenario. The zombie apocalypse is just a long, grueling way for society to end, and I feel like we're already headed that way. To be honest, it's just been the nuts of a year, that's for sure. Kind of ready to see this page turn in the book. Let's move on into that next chapter. I completely agree with you there. Well, it was great talking to you. I'm looking forward to apology text from Elena with details of her punishment.
I agree, and I'm don't hold your breath on receiving it, but it could happen. There's a possibility for sure. Jason, you've been such a good friend to Elena and helped her out starting off on her podcasting, and just has always had a good heart and helpful and she thinks so highly of you. We're grateful that you're in her life, which makes you a part of my life as well. So thanks for all the things that you've done to assist her and help her to launch. It's appreciated, and she thinks very, very fondly of you. So hopefully we'll all get to meet in person one day.
Thank you very much, and I would love that. I really would. It would be a lot of fun.
Us too. It would be indeed. Well, I enjoyed being on your show. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. It was great talking to you. That was very nice of her to say. That was really, really sweet. I love Eugenia, love Elena. Hopefully one day we'll all get together. I'm going to take a quick break, and I will be back with Frankie MacDonald.
This is Stand the Beast Severed, the only Triple Crown champion in the UFC's no holds barred history. You're listening to Jason Marshall's We Don't Have Cookies. Cookies! I want some cookies! You better listen, otherwise I know where you live.
I am back, and joining me now is the podcast's official weatherman and YouTube sensation, Frankie MacDonald. Frankie, what will the weather be like this week, starting on Monday?
There's a tropical storm, might become a hurricane headed towards Louisiana this week. Then it's going to be warm air, cold air fighting each other all across North America. Then again, there's a powerful low pressure system in northern Quebec and Nunavut region of Quebec. That's going to bring a lot of rain. And UK is bringing lots of rain too. And there's a typhoon bypassing South Korea, North Korea. It's headed towards somewhere in northeastern China. Then you got really, really, really cold, brutal cold air headed for New Zealand this week coming up, because winter's not over yet for Southern Hemisphere.
What will the weather be like in New York, Ohio, and California?
California's going to get a lot of fires. Then you got a really humid air headed for Dayton, Ohio. There's a possible tropical storm Lauren Bay headed for Dayton, Ohio, too.
Well, earlier in the show, I had a guy on who believes that the Earth is flat. What do you think about that?
The Earth is round, not flat. The ice caps are melting up in the North Pole. The ice caps are collapsing and things like that.
After last week's show, you sent me a link to order a Frankie MacDonald action figure. As soon as you sent that, I made sure I ordered it. I should be getting that on Tuesday. When I do, I'll post a picture of that on the podcast's official Instagram and Facebook pages.
Yes, and right now my action figures are sold out for now.
Really? They have already sold out?
300 of them in a month.
Wow, that's great news, Frankie. I'm really happy to hear that. Well, I also wanted to say that we are going to start a new segment on Frankie's part of the show called Frankie Says. So if there's something that you want Frankie to say, send me an email, jason@wedon'thavecookies.com. If I pick your email, Frankie will say whatever word or phrase you want him to, and we'll start that next week.
Yes.
All right, Frankie, it was great talking to you. Where can people find you online, and where can people buy your stuff?
Frankie McD, Twitter @Frankie McD, and Amazon, Frankie McD. Search Frankie down on Amazon to find a copy of my book. It's on Barnes & Noble website, Chapters Indigo Canada. And Facebook is Frankie MacDonald, Frankie MacDon. That's my Snapchat, Frankie MacDonald 1984. That's my Twitch, and that's Frankie MacDonald 1984. That's my TikTok, and my YouTube channel, Dogs and Wolves, and my Instagram is Frankie MacD 1984. I use Twitch now too. My Twitch is also Frankie MacDonald 1984.
All right, Frankie, well, that sounds great. Everybody go out, follow him everywhere you can. Frankie, it was good talking to you. I'll talk to you next week.
Best of luck, yeah. I'm Frankie MacDonald. You're listening to We Don't Have Cookies.
Have a great day, Frankie.
Well, now.
Always great to talk to Frankie. I have a lot to do around the house and with work, so I'm going to wind down the show right now. But I want to thank my guests, Mark Sargent and Eugenia, for being on the show. Eugenia said probably the nicest thing anybody said to me all year. Very much appreciate that. Like I told you, she's the world's nicest woman. Also, Mark Sargent has given me a book to give to one of you listeners out there. I will have details on the contest next week, so make sure you stay tuned. If you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast anywhere you're listening to it right now. And if you enjoy the show, make sure you tell a friend. I hope you have a great week. I'll talk to you next Monday.
Thanks for listening. Tell your friends about the show and leave a review. See you next time.
I had sex with her father, and boom,